David was not a poor man. At only 29 years old, he already owned what many men spend their entire lives chasing: a large modern house in a wealthy neighborhood, a luxury car parked in front of his gate, and most importantly, several $1 million in his bank account. To the world, David was a successful man, but no one saw what he truly felt. Every evening he returned to his big, silent house. No laughter, no voices, no presents, just him and the emptiness. And that night, the emptiness felt heavier than usual. So he decided to go out. He put on his best outfit, grabbed his car keys, and drove to the most luxurious nightclub in the city. The moment he walked in, he was hit by flashing lights and loud music. Glasses clinked. People laughed. Some danced without caring about anything. David settled into a VIP corner and ordered a glass of whiskey. He took a sip, then another, observing the crowd until his eyes suddenly stopped. A woman was sitting alone a few meters away. She wasn't dancing. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't looking at anyone. She was staring at her drink. Silent, beautiful, but different. There was something in her eyes: sadness, depth, mystery. David felt his heart beat faster. Without thinking, he stood up and walked toward her. "Good evening. What is a beautiful woman like you doing sitting alone?" The woman slowly lifted her eyes. Their gazes met. She gave a faint smile, fragile. "I'm having problems with my husband. I came here to forget." Her voice was soft, almost broken. David immediately felt compassion. He sat down across from her. "May I keep you company?" She looked at him for a few seconds, as if analyzing his soul. "Yes, I'd like that." Her name was Sarah. They started talking. Minutes turned into hours. She laughed at his jokes. She looked at him as if he mattered, as if he was different. And for the first time in a long time, David didn't feel alone. But what David didn't know was that while he was talking, while he was laughing, while he was trusting her, Sarah was observing everything: his gestures, his watch, the way he spoke. She didn't see a man. She saw an opportunity. Because Sarah was not a broken woman. Sarah was a dangerous woman. And that night, David hadn't met love. He had met the beginning of his downfall. As the night went on, Sarah became closer. At first, she had seemed distant, fragile, almost shattered. But now she was laughing. She leaned slightly toward David and gently placed her hand on his. David felt a shiver run through his body. "You're different from other men," Sarah whispered. David smiled. Her words awakened something inside him. It had been a long time since a woman had looked at him with softness, admiration, need. And in David's mind, a thought began to form. A thought he would never admit. He saw her sadness. He saw her vulnerability. And deep down, he saw an opportunity. An opportunity to spend the night with a woman that beautiful. An opportunity to fill his own emptiness. He convinced himself he was helping her forget. But the truth was, he wanted it too. "I'd like to spend the night with you," Sarah murmured softly. David's heart raced. Everything was happening too fast. They had just met. A part of him found it strange, but the other part, the one guided by desire and ego, took control. "She's just a sad woman who needs comfort," he told himself. "Okay," he replied calmly. A slight smile appeared on Sarah's lips, a nearly invisible smile, a dangerous smile. A few minutes later, they left the nightclub together. The city was quiet. David's car glided through the dark streets. Sarah looked out the window silently, observing. She memorized everything: the neighborhood, the house, the gate, every detail. When they arrived, David opened the door. Sarah stepped inside slowly and looked around. The house was large, luxurious, modern. "You have a beautiful home," she said softly. David smiled proudly. They sat down. They talked more. They drank. They laughed. Then the night continued. A few hours later, David fell into a deep, peaceful sleep, feeling like he had just experienced something special. But at 3 a.m., something changed. Sarah's eyes slowly opened in the darkness. Her face was no longer the same. The sadness was gone. Her expression was cold, empty, calculating. She turned her head toward David. He was sleeping deeply, trusting, defenseless. She got up without making a sound and walked to her bag, pulling out a small black USB drive. She approached David's computer and turned it on. The screen's light illuminated her face. No emotion, only focus. She inserted the USB. Seconds later, the program began running. Passwords appeared, accounts, access codes, everything. Sarah did not panic. She did not tremble. She did this like routine work. She opened his bank account and transferred everything, every cent, every saving, every dream. Gone in a few clicks. Then she went to the safe. She entered the code, opened it, took the cash. She didn't even look at David. To her, he was no longer a person. He was a completed mission. Minutes later, she took his car keys and left the house. No noise, no regret, no hesitation. The car disappeared into the night. David was still sleeping, unaware that everything he had built had vanished, and the woman he thought he had chosen had actually chosen him as her prey. And it wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. The next morning, sunlight gently entered David's bedroom. He slowly opened his eyes. A small smile appeared on his face. For a few seconds he lay there, remembering the night he had just lived. He felt good, happy, less alone. He turned toward the other side of the bed. Sarah wasn't there. He smiled slightly, assuming she was in the shower. He waited. Then he heard something. Silence. No running water. No movement. Nothing. He stood up. "Sarah?" he called calmly. No response. He walked to the bathroom. Empty. His heart started beating faster. He checked the kitchen. No one. The living room. No one. A strange discomfort grew inside him. He returned to the bedroom. Then his eyes froze on his computer. It was on. He was sure he had turned it off before sleeping. He slowly approached the screen, and his heart stopped. His bank account was open. Balance, 0. David blinked. He thought it was a mistake. He refreshed the page. Still 0. His hands began to shake. His breathing grew heavy. He checked the transaction history. 1 transfer. All the money sent to an unknown account. His mind refused to accept what he was seeing. "No," he whispered. He ran to the safe. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely enter the code. The safe opened. Empty. Not a single bill. David slowly stepped back. His heart was pounding violently in his chest. Then a thought hit him. He rushed outside. He looked at the spot where his car had been parked. Empty. His car was gone. And in that exact moment, the truth hit him like a brutal punch. Sarah wasn't a victim. She wasn't a sad woman. She was a thief. David collapsed to his knees. He ran his hands over his face, trembling. In one single night, he had lost everything. His money, his security, his pride, and worst of all, his trust. A few hours later, David sat at the police station. Silent, broken. An officer sat across from him. "Describe the woman." David spoke. Every detail, every memory, every look. The officer listened without an interruption. Then he pulled out a file. He opened several pages filled with photographs. "Look carefully." David scanned 1 photo, 2, 3. Then suddenly, he froze. His chest tightened. "It was her," he whispered. The officer's face turned serious. "She doesn't go by Sarah." David slowly lifted his eyes. "Her real name is Karine Kasongo." Silence filled the room. "She's been wanted for 9 years," the officer continued. "She always uses the same method. She targets wealthy men, gains their trust, then disappears with everything." David felt cold. It wasn't personal. It wasn't special. He wasn't different. He was just another target, another victim. He closed his eyes and realized something painful. It wasn't the money that hurt the most. It was the fact that he had believed she was real. While David sat at the police station, eyes red, voice shaking, heart shattered, Karine was laughing. She was sitting by her private pool in a modern villa, holding a glass of champagne. The sun reflected on her face. Her phone vibrated. Bank notification. Transfer confirmed. She smiled. Once again, it had worked. Because of this method, Karine was no longer an ordinary woman. She was wealthy. Very wealthy. Her villa was massive, located in one of the richest neighborhoods in the city. Quiet, clean, discreet. A place where no one asked, "How did you get rich?" They only admired the result. In her garage, a black Mercedes, a white Range Rover, a red sports car. Inside, leather sofas, marble stairs, massive screens, modern lighting. Everything screamed success, but none of it had been earned. Every object came from a victim. Every luxury came from a lie. Karine walked slowly across her living room. Her heels echoed against the polished floor. She stopped in front of a large mirror. She studied her reflection. Cone, confident, powerful. She didn't see a criminal. She saw an intelligent woman, because she understood something most people ignore. Emotions make people weak. And she used that weakness. She didn't force anyone. She didn't threaten anyone. She observed. She listened. She waited. Then she struck. While David cried, while he tried to understand what had happened, Karine was already thinking about the next city, the next target, the next game, because to her this wasn't crime. It was strategy, and she had never lost. But she knew something. After what she did to David, the police would intensify the search. Staying was dangerous. She picked up her phone and booked a flight. Destination, Dubai. 2 days later, Karine was sitting in first class. Champagne in hand, calm and composed as always. Hours later, she arrived in one of the richest cities in the world. Dubai. A perfect place to disappear. A place where money buys silence. She checked into a luxury hotel. For days, she enjoyed herself. Fine dining, high-end boutiques, exclusive parties. No one knew her past here. No one knew who she really was. Then one evening, her phone vibrated. A message from an old acquaintance. A very wealthy man is hosting a private party tonight. His name is Gerby. You should come. Karine stared at the screen. A slow smile formed on her lips. Perfect, she whispered. A new city. A new target. A new game. Gerby's villa was even more extravagant than anything she had seen before. Perched above Dubai, glowing under the nightlights. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Armed guards secured every gate. Inside, the private party was in full swing. Wealthy men, elegant women, champagne flowing, soft music playing. Karine entered calmly. Elegant, confident, invisible. No one saw a criminal. They saw beauty. She took a glass and scanned the room. Then she saw him. Gerby? Powerful, wealthy, self-assured. She didn't rush. Patience was key. Their eyes met. He approached. Good evening. She smiled softly. Good evening. They talked. He laughed. Relaxed. He saw no danger. To him, she was just an attractive woman. To her, he was already a target. After some time, he leaned closer. Let's go somewhere more private. Exactly what she wanted. They went upstairs. Hours later, Gerby was sleeping deeply. Like David, like all the others. At 3 a.m., Karine opened her eyes. Cone. Precise. Controlled. She inserted the USB drive into his computer. The program launched. Access codes appeared. Accounts. Passwords. Everything. She opened his bank account and transferred the money. Billions. Within minutes, it was gone. She removed the USB, closed the laptop, looked at him one last time, then walked out. The guards saw her leaving. They assumed she was just another guest. No one stopped her. No one questioned her. She stepped into the night once again. Another victory. Another ghost. Another man who believed he was different. The taxi was already on its way to the airport. Meanwhile, Gerby was still asleep. Suddenly, his phone rang. He opened his eyes and answered. "Sir, this is your bank. A large transfer has just been made from your account." Gerby sat up instantly. "What transfer?" He grabbed his laptop, opened it, and his blood ran cold. Everything was gone. His heart started pounding violently. Then he understood. The woman. He jumped to his feet. "Block every airport," he shouted into the phone, but it was already too late. Karine was seated in first class, calm, elegant, holding a glass of champagne. The plane slowly lifted into the sky. Once again, she had won. Once again, no one could stop her. Inside his villa, Gerby was in full panic. Billions gone in a single night. "Find her," he yelled. Seconds later, a voice responded. "Sir, we've located her." He froze. "Where?" "She's on a flight heading to Ivory Coast." Gerby's jaw tightened. "Turn that plane around." Immediately. There was a pause. "Sir, that's not possible. The aircraft is already in the air." Silence. Then Gerby spoke again, cold, controlled. "Listen carefully. I will give $1 million to every person on that plane." His voice trembled with rage. "But I want that woman back." Within minutes, a special order was transmitted to the cockpit. "Return to Dubai immediately." Karine was still gazing at the clouds when she felt it. The aircraft shifted direction. Her brows furrowed. "That's strange." Then the pilot's voice echoed. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to technical reasons, we will be returning to Dubai." For the first time in years, Karine felt something she did not control. Fear. The plane landed. Passengers began to stand. Suddenly, the doors opened. Armed officers entered the cabin. Silence. A name rang out like thunder. Karine Kasongo. Her heart skipped. "Stand up." The champagne glass trembled in her hand. For the first time, she wasn't smiling. Metal cuffs clicked around her wrists. That sound meant one thing. The end. Hours later, she sat alone in a cold prison cell. No champagne. No luxury. No power. For the first time in 9 years. The predator had become the prisoner. The news spread like wildfire. Television channels broadcast her face. Social media exploded. Headlines repeated one name, the woman who robbed wealthy men. The woman who manipulated dozens. The woman who thought she was untouchable. Weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, police officers, victims. Karine entered calmly, expressionless. The judge detailed every crime, every life damaged, every fortune stolen. Then the sentence fell. "Karine Kasongo, you are sentenced to life imprisonment." Gasps filled the room. Some victims closed their eyes. Some finally breathed. Justice had spoken. The stolen money was recovered. The victims were reimbursed. But some things can never be restored. Trust, inner peace, invisible scars. And this story isn't just about theft. It's about human weakness. Karine never used weapons. She never used force. She used something far more powerful. Psychology. She understood that many wealthy men live alone. They have money. They have houses. They have cars. But they have no one. And loneliness is one of the greatest human vulnerabilities. Loneliness creates a void. And that void makes people trust too quickly. David wasn't robbed because he was foolish. He was robbed because he was human. He wanted to feel chosen. He wanted to feel important. He wanted to feel loved. Karine gave him that illusion. And she didn't just steal his money. She stole his trust. And that is the theft that hurts the most. 3 powerful lessons. Lesson 1. Everything that looks perfect can be a trap. Some people don't show you who they are, they show you who you hope they are. Lesson 2. Emotions can destroy logic. When feelings take control, reason disappears. And that's when the biggest mistakes happen. Lesson 3. The truth always catches up with lies. For 9 years she won. For 9 years she manipulated. For 9 years she thought she was untouchable. But no lie lasts forever. Final signature line, impactful ending. That night, David thought he had met a broken woman, but in reality, he had just met the biggest mistake of his life. Because sometimes, the greatest downfall doesn't begin with a bad decision. It begins with an illusion. Did David lose his money? Because he was manipulated or because he let his loneliness control him?